Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Big Red Bus. This show was recorded before the win versus the Magic. Some stellar performances in that 126-115 win that need to be mentioned. DeMar DeRozan with a 29-point, 10 rebound, 5 assist game. Vooch with 18 points, 13 rebounds. Zach with 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. And, of course, the incredible Ayo with 13 points and 9 assists. This kid, incredible. I'm not sure what I find more irritating. All the Ayo doubters that I had to endure around draft night, that crowd with the, Cooper's an elite passer. Yeah, but he's 5'7" and 150 pounds. And the response, it doesn't matter, he's an elite passer. Or Doug's continuing comments that the Cooper crowd didn't exist. I don't know which one I find more irritating. Regardless, in this episode, you're about to hear us get into Ayo. We discuss potential Patrick Williams trades. And most importantly, we talk about what defines success in the playoffs. Is a loss in the first round to the Atlanta Hawks, would that be a successful season? So we go a little bit deeper into the potential matchups in the playoffs and what would be a success. I hope you enjoy it. Godspeed, everyone. We'll talk again soon. Here is the latest episode of The Big Red Bus. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Big Red Bus as we take the glorious monstrosity out onto the streets of Chicago on a beautiful Monday night in the month of January. How you doing the last day of January? How you doing, my friend, the Podfather, the co-pilot, Doug Thonus? What's going on, brother?
I'm doing pretty well. You seem a lot more chipper this time. Last time, I don't know where we were going.
That will happen.
Last time.
That will happen with it.
It was awful. It was so bad. I was like, I don't even know what happened to you. Like, I was going to send someone to your house. I was just like, man, he's losing it. He's just losing it.
Well, we lost 2 in a row, I think, the last time we recorded.
I'm just thinking,
and now we've won 3 out of 4. Well, of course I'm going to be
I just
happy.
want to tell you, you've followed the Bulls for a long time. I wouldn't think 2 losses in a row was enough to throw yourself off a cliff. I mean, I don't know how you made it this far, if that's the case.
This year, it's like it's a whole new thing. It was after the Orlando loss, I think, Doug, and I think you were miffed too. And I will say, let me read an email from from an avid listener, Ed Davis. His name is from. I have no idea where he's from, but next time, tell me where you're from, and I'll tell everybody.
I don't know if people need that to be said. I don't know if people care.
Okay, he's from the Chicago metro area. I'm willing to bet, maybe not. Or he's maybe
not from Chicago.
Let me read it's a long email, but the relevant part. Fred, you were right. You were right on Troy Brown Jr. You were right. Period. Thank you. Thanks, Ed. So you remember how I started the show last week with the diatribe against Troy Brown Jr.?
Yeah, that was still completely worthless. Like, there's no reason to discuss like Troy Brown Jr., who is like the 11th man on the team if everyone's healthy for 20 minutes.
Not currently. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's also
he had a rough
problem.
week.
The problem is that
put it mildly.
He's not the 11th man anymore. Like, that's a problem. It's it's not a problem that Troy Brown Jr. isn't better. I mean, we wish he was better. He's not going to be here long term. He's not on any long, expensive contract. He's now a guy who's just destined to be gone and isn't very good. And sometimes you have players like that.
Let me get the wheel of this bus back here. Come on, we're not going to talk about Troy Brown Jr.
We're not me. Don't look at me like it's my fault.
Hey, I just wanted to read an email from Ed Davis. What are you talking about?
Last week. Like, you could have just let it go. There's no chance I was going to utter the phrase Troy Brown Jr. on this show up until you brought it up again.
Good. Well, we've won 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 this week. The week in review. Let's go back since the last time we recorded the show. We got to start on 124, which will forever be known going forward as the Ayo game. 124, Ayo went to the 4, and Josh Giddey was kicked out the door. Why don't we get your comments on that game, that victory in Oklahoma City? Which, all the critics. I've had to put up with a lot of idiocy since we drafted this kid with the large contingent of Cooper.
No one talks about that. I don't know how you find this out.
Doug,
if there was
I'm not going to go
like that guy. They've changed their opinion. There's not a single person out there who's still like, oh, I love Cooper, and I think Ayo's everyone loves Ayo. He might be like the most popular guy in the team. Like he's.
We have a mutual friend in Australia who seems eager to point out his deficiencies every time he fails. But that said, that was my favorite game. Even on the last show, you still gave it up. Let me just state this right here. Giddey, 40%, 26% from three. His effective field goal percentage is 44%.
What?
In 31 minutes per
Save
game.
this for a show that someone cares about.
42.
Like, I'm not arguing Giddey.
Hey, everybody cares about this.
This is one of your weird.
No, I'm taking my victory lap. You're not going to ruin this from me.
I'm taking victory lap with Mark on the show. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not arguing with you.
We'll do that then.
I'm not sitting here telling you Josh Giddey is great.
To this.
Like, I don't need to fight with you.
The Ayo game. All right, so they won the Ayo game against Oklahoma City. And then we go on to, what was the next game? Then we beat the Raptors, which, Raptors are a decent team.
Yeah. With everyone healthy, the Raptors are pretty solid.
Yep. And then the Spurs game, which was not enjoyable, to put it mildly.
That's true.
Especially the defense in the second. Some of the worst defense I've ever seen. It was really horrific, I will admit. And let's go there for a second. Like, I think there's some teams clearly that are trying to pick and roll us to death. And I think we're starting to see what teams are trying to do to the beloved Bull. Obviously, that's all going to change when we get some of our best defenders on the perimeter back. You're not going to be able to do that stuff. But I was really kind of down and disturbed after that game. But, a pretty nice win against the Blazers. We're just going to have to outscore teams, I guess, until all our defensive pieces come back.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. The one thing I would say maybe you can question is does Billy Donovan make enough adjustments? And, is there more we could do? Because sometimes it just feels like he's not really making the adjustments he needs for this team. He just keeps going with his same sets on offense, his same sets on defense. Other teams will change things up based on what's working and effective against us. And it doesn't seem like Donovan makes a lot of adjustments. So that's one of the knocks that's been on him, I think, throughout his career, to be honest. And I feel like we're seeing that now. Now, to some extent, it's hard to get too upset about that, just given the personnel that's out there. Zach LaVine, since he came back from the injury, it just doesn't look like fully there. Like, I wonder if he's still just kind of playing a little hurt. Like if his knees bothering him, because he just doesn't quite look the same either. And the effort is definitely much worse on defense. His shooting it just seems off, which feels like it could be due to elevation not being quite the same. So, I wonder if kind of there's limited options as to what Donovan can do, and I understand that, as a possibility here. But, realistically, that's the only thing I would take from this. We're missing our two best perimeter defenders, and they were crucial guys on the team. And so I don't think it surprises anyone that our perimeter defense is no longer as good as it was. That's just obvious. But that's the only thing I wonder is, is this something that really is kind of highlighting a flaw of Donovan's that may come back later, even when everyone is healthy?
Yeah, and I would like to touch a little bit. I think people are kind of going a little bit overboard. Yes, we have some major injuries to our best two perimeter defenders, and then also Dennis Jones Jr. is out. But our three best players are still healthy and playing right now. They're still out there. And
well, those guys aren't defenders,
every team.
If you're talking specifically about the defense.
That's true, but Javonte Green came back. From what I'm supposed to understand, he's supposed to be elite. So it's not like we're. I grow a little weary of hearing the excuse we're missing these guys when, to me, it's inexcusable to lose to a team like Orlando because you have your three best players. You should have enough to win those games. And everybody's missing guys. Like you go up and down the Blazers were healthy yesterday. There's up and down the Nets are missing Durant. You go up and down the league, there's guys out. Unless you're the Sixers and forced departures, right?
Well,
so I just grow a little weary of the excuse making for it because the fact is DeRozan, Levine, and Vooch are there. That should be enough to win the majority of these games.
Well, just to be clear, Levine wasn't playing in the Orlando game. Right?
Good point.
So we didn't have our three best players for that game. Yeah, we did for the Spurs, but what I'll add onto this is good teams lose to bad teams sometimes. So you got to look at that in the aggregate too. I mean, the Bulls are 31-18. They are the 5th best record in the NBA. And so that feels pretty good. I mean, they've lost a couple games they shouldn't have lost. So what? You could say that about whatever team you want. Pick a team. And they've lost some games they probably shouldn't have lost. That's just the way things go. And it's like, and the aggregate record shows that they're not like losing games they should win like over and over and over again. They wouldn't have the 5th best record in the league if they were just constantly blowing games they should win, right? So I mean, the record is what it is. And if anything, I would say, though I'm excited about this team and I'm happy with what they've done. Their expected win-loss record, which kind of takes their net rating and sort of plugs it against other teams' net record rating, is 27-22. Their actual record is 31-18. So if anything, you could say the Bulls are probably better than they should be record-wise, that they win more games that maybe they shouldn't. And they're probably just not quite as good as we think they are. And you look at that and you see all the close games that the Bulls have won. Yeah, those 2 DeRozan game winners. We almost choked away that game against OKC, and almost choked away the game against Toronto too. I guess I don't feel bad about the fact that the Bulls aren't annihilating every team. Like it's kind of like people have seen this good run, and now they're like, this team should be like a championship team, and it should be like the Jordan Bulls and just blow everyone away. Well, that's really still not who they are. They have a really good record, and they played really well, and they're a good team. But I don't like nothing I've seen like when they lose a game here or there. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is falling. I mean, it just happens. Teams lose games.
I just think when you lose to the likes of the Orlando Magic and Spurs and
how about the Bucks, or was it the Nets who just lost to the Pistons?
Yeah,
I mean, and like they lost the Orlando game. Like I said, like Zach was out, and then Javonte wasn't back yet, so they were missing like 6 guys who would be in the rotation that game. It's a little better now as Zach and Javonte. Like regardless of what you think about Javonte, I know you're not like a huge fan. It's like it's like now you're going to like Matt Thomas or your boy Troy Brown Jr. So it's like having him back is still better than like these other end of bench guys, right? Like I don't think Javonte Green's great, but he's still better than these other like super scrubby guys. So it's like when you're missing all these guys and all of a sudden like Matt Thomas is playing like good minutes for you, like that's a struggle, That's like something you got to overcome. And so it's fine. I guess I agree. Every team's going through stuff like that. It's fine, but you're just going to drop some games that are like that at times. Maybe the big thing that concerns me, and we talked about it, is just the defense. You look at that last game that they won too, and I posted about it on Twitter, and it was like they gave up something like 52% from the field from the Blazers and like 46% from 3. If I can't remember if those are the exact stats, but it was like something like that. And it's just like, you're not going to win many games if that happens. And they won the game because they also shot extremely well, and they just didn't turn the ball over at all. And they had a few more offensive rebounds because even though we play small, Portland plays like micro small. So, we beat them on the glass by like 3 or 4 possessions, and we beat them on the turnovers by 3 or 4 possessions, and like the extra maybe 8-9 possessions we had in the game in combined. And I think we shot from the foul line maybe a little better than they did. Like that was kind of the difference. And it was like we blew them out, but it was like, man, that was not a game we deserved to blow them out. You know what I mean?
I think, Doug, I've noticed just a different set of expectations. I think there's also been a little bit of frustration since the January 12th and the 14th when the Bulls played the Nets and the Warriors back-to-back, which is, those are 2 yardstick games. And they gave up 138 points to both those teams in back-to-back games, right? Both L's. And since those 2 games, they've played, the Nets, the Warriors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They played 11 games. They've only held opponents to under 100 points 1 time in those 11 games. So the defense, no doubt, has taken a big hit, which is to be expected when you're losing your 2 best defenders. But, I just kind of feel like, in general, the fan base kind of changed a little bit after those 2 games, became a little bit more angry again, a little bit more Garpax era and frustrated with some of these losses. And I will say I do feel like I think we've gone a little bit too much in the direction of like we're not healthy. I just hear that all the time, and again, that's my counter is that no one's healthy, really. So that's why the Nets are struggling. That's why a lot of these teams are struggling right now. So
and that's why we're struggling. I mean, it's a game of it's a game of stretches. Like the Bulls won, was it like 9 in a row earlier, 10 in a row? It was like right around there, and then they went through a rough stretch, and it was like. They played some good teams. They lost some yardstick games, but you look at like that Warriors game, and it's like you're missing Zach LaVine for pretty much the whole game. He got hurt 3 minutes in. Lonzo was out most of that game. Yeah, maybe actually now I think about it, they just pulled him because they're getting their ass kicked. I think he got hurt after that, but maybe he did. No, he did get hurt in that game. Either way, it doesn't matter. I just was. It's. You want reassurance that this team is really great, and they probably aren't really great. So you're not going to get that reassurance. I guess that's how I would state it. It says this is a good team, maybe even a really good team that has a really good record. If anything, their record is probably better than their ability level, and that's okay. So it's one of those things. You're not going to get this reassurance that they're going to be this elite playoff team. Because there's a good chance they aren't going to be that type of team.
I think if they're healthy, though, Doug, they are very good.
Yeah, I think they're very good.
I think they're set up for playoff success. I think they could beat anybody now the way Milwaukee's playing. At some point, you got to say Milwaukee is who they are.
They could lose to anyone though, too, right?
I
mean, outside of like the Wizards or whatever, like
Atlanta.
Fine. Like you look at the 7-8 seeds, but like. When you say they can beat anyone, you're only talking about the top 6. I mean, they can lose to any of those teams, too.
I think there's only 3 teams they could lose to in the East. That's the Sixers, the Nets, and the Milwaukee Bucks.
They can't lose to the Heat.
Those are only 3 teams that can beat them.
They can't lose to the Heat. Come on, get out of here.
Gosh darn it. You got to screw it up. You're right, probably. They could lose to them. Yeah, you're right. Fair enough. 4 teams. You're right. They could lose to 4 teams.
You don't think they could lose to Cleveland?
No.
I mean, I think they'd be favored over Cleveland, but they could totally lose to Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland would have like this great matchup inside. Like they have all this height and other stuff. Like, I'm not saying they would lose to Cleveland,
but they also got Lauri Markkanen starting at the 3.
Not anymore, right? Isn't he out?
Yeah, he's out. He'll be back.
Anyway, I guess all I'm saying is like I think they would beat Cleveland, but like man, there's no way you. Yeah, I'm just saying like not even a chance they lose. Mm-hmm. Like even if you get down to like Charlotte, like I mean I don't think they'd lose to Charlotte, but it's like even Charlotte's playing really well. It's like if you look at the top 7 teams, Charlotte is the worst of those at 28 and 23. And this season kind of is taking on. I don't know if you remember, it was ways back, but there was one year in the West where I want to say it was like the Spurs were the 8th seed, and they won 48 games that year. Or 49 games that year. Mm-hmm. And, it's like you just looked at like the talent, like top to bottom. Like you're like basically, and I want to say maybe it was Memphis or someone else. There was another team that won like 47 and missed the playoffs by a game. Or maybe it was the Spurs missed the playoffs by a game and won 48. But it was like one of these things like, there's like a team out there that won almost 50 games and missed the playoffs. And it's like the East is kind of shaping up that way this year. There's just like a lot of parity and like all the teams are really good. So like there's... if maybe the number 1 seed has an easy out in the first round, but that's it. I mean, everyone else is in for a fight. Like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough in the playoffs this year. So even if the Bulls are a really good playoff team, man, they are not going to get an easy matchup. Like if right now Brooklyn is seeded 6. Imagine if you had to play them in the first round if you were 3. No,
that would be a nightmare.
Milwaukee is seeded 5. Like if you're not a 1 or 2 seed right now, you're gonna have a really brutal matchup regardless of where you sit. And that's just gonna be what it is. There's no doubt about
that. I mean, the East is better right now. You look at the 9 and 10 teams in the East. It's the Celtics and Hawks. The Celtics are destroying the Heat tonight. Like those 2 teams are better than the Blazers and even the Lakers and Clippers, right? Minus some of their key players. Timberwolves are a 7 seed in the East at a 500. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's not even close. The East in 1 year is just, it's all swung because DeRozan went east, and it's just a better conference now. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do want to talk a little bit about their schedule though in the next few games. I think it's very important that the Bulls at least maintain home court advantage in round one, because I do want to see them get to the second round. I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely.
I predicted they would. I predicted they would lose in the second round this year, and then to me that sets it all up for next year. Like next year is the year you're hoping that you're getting growth from Patrick Williams at the 4, and that will make all the difference in the world. Because regardless of how you feel about Javonte Green, and there's no doubt he's been fantastic for a guy who makes a minimum salary as a 28-year-old, super athletic, very nice highlight dunks. He's just ignored on the floor. People don't pay attention to him. I think his last 13 games, he's shooting he's under 25% from 3. He's down to 33% on the year. Nobody pays attention to him. You can see that's what the defenses say. Like, just don't even guard him at the 3-point line. He's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, if he hurts you, it's on a cut. It's not. I mean,
yes. Yeah, let him fire away. Let him fire away wide open threes at a 33% rate. And his guys consistently going to double on Levine and DeRozan. So, like, I'm fine with, again, I'm tired of trying to explain my thoughts on this whole thing. We need an upgrade at that 4, period. And you need somebody who can punish that. And I think that's why Patrick was hopefully going to develop into that guy. This injury has set him back significantly. But by next year, hopefully that position will be addressed in some form or fashion. So my goal for this year is get into the playoffs, get experience for all these guys that don't have it outside of DeRozan, and prove yourselves and set yourself up for success next year with a new team with a 4 or the legit 4 going back with the same group, and hopefully we'll have more luck in terms of health. What say you?
I say you trade Patrick Williams for that legit 4 this year. I mean, if you can.
So you're up for the Grant trade.
If you can. I mean, like, and who knows? But if you can get Grant, you do it. You don't even think about it. Like, one, you're not going to have any cap room to sign anyone next year.
Well, you kind of think about it, though, Doug, don't you?
But with what? Sorry, I think about what?
I mean, you would agree, even if we got Grant, the odds are we're not coming out this
year.
The
odds are we're going to be better this year than next year. You're going to lose Derek Jones Jr. next year.
Okay.
So he's just going to be gone.
Sure.
You're going to lose Troy Brown Jr., not that it matters. And you're going to add no one because you have no the extra rooms. You're going to add minimum salary guys.
Well,
DeMar DeRozan probably isn't going to be as good next year. Just feels like this is probably a magical year for him. It's his career year at 32. Like, probably isn't going to be better. Vucevic probably isn't going to be better next year. So, maybe you have Patrick Williams. Okay. You think hanging on to Patrick Williams is going to give you a better team than if you traded him for Jeremy Grant this year or next year? You'd be better off with Grant both years. Even if he becomes a good player, he's not going to become that good next year. I mean, it's possible, but it's really unlikely, especially if he misses this whole year and doesn't get to develop. I mean, why would you think that's going to happen? Like, he's just magically, while healing a wrist injury, he's going to just grow leaps and bounds?
Well, your argument is that your argument is basically this: Vucevic and DeRozan are going to be worse,
and Derek Jones Jr. is going to be gone.
He's not really relevant though, because he's going to be gone, but you're going to get Patrick Williams back next year.
Well, Derek Jones Jr. is better than Patrick Williams right now, but okay.
All right, maybe not as a 3-point shooter, not as what I think offensively.
Way better defensively. That's not even freaking close.
Okay, we won't go down this road.
It's not even in the ballpark. I mean, it's like Patrick Williams is like a near non-factor on offense. Like the fact that he can shoot wide open threes at a decent percentage if he has like 10 seconds to load up his slow ass shot is great. But
DeRozan's still going to be really good
I agree.
Next year. And then, so yes, Vooch might slow down a little bit more. But what about the factor in the improvements of Kobe White and Ayo DeSumo?
Yeah, maybe.
I think those two are young players.
I mean, if you look at it this way,
is that going to counterbalance?
You got Ayo, you got Kobe, and you got Patrick Williams theoretically going on the upswing. You have Vucevic and DeRozan, who will probably be on the downswing, and you will lose Derek Jones Jr. for nothing. And I would say of those things, probably you're worse off next year, depending maybe on, I guess, how much you get out of the 3 young guys, of course. But here's the other thing. Let's just say you trade Williams for Grant right now. And then you have that same team, except you swap out Grant into this year, and you give up nothing useful whatsoever. And you also swap out Grant and Williams next year. Well, Grant next year is still going to be a crap ton better than Patrick Williams next year. So you win that next year, and you win it this year. Like, it's just a good trade if you're looking at this 2-year window. If you want to go out 3 years,
I'm confident in that.
Why? What have you seen from Patrick Williams that makes you think he will ever be as good as Jeremy Grant? Ever.
I think his 3-point shot has been significantly better. And
If he has 5 seconds to load up, his 3-point shot is great.
You act like he's I understand your point. Like, it's not a quick release, but he's still hitting it at a high enough percentage.
But he cannot take it in volume, Fred. He can't take it in volume. That's the problem.
That's my point. Either is Grant.
No, but Grant can score in volume. He can draw fouls in volume.
But you don't need him to do that, Doug. You don't need him to score.
You absolutely can use him to score. I mean, you just can. One of the big problems is Javonte Green cannot score. You get another option who can score, and as soon as you go to your bench, and now it's like you got 4 scorers on the roster, and you always have 2 of them out there. It makes a huge difference. When you have injuries, it makes a huge difference. It just makes a huge difference. And I don't love Jeremy Grant. I'm not trying to tell you he's amazing. But he's a good defender. He's a really good defender. And he's a good offensive player. He's a two-way player. And he's available for a guy like Patrick Williams who's got like potential to be like Jeff Green or something in 3 years. Like, there's just no reason to think Patrick Williams giving up on him is anything. By the time he develops into whatever he develops into, he's going to be on a market rate contract, and it's not going to matter anyway because you could swap him out for another dude making the same amount of money, and it would be fine.
I guess when it all comes down to it, I have a little bit more faith in the improvements of Ayo, Patrick Williams, and Kobe
Ayo is
White
there either
together.
way, as is Kobe White. Those things are not part of the equation. You're just deciding over the next 2 years. The next 2 years, it's just you want Grant or Patrick Williams. Well, Grant is 0 this year, so you're basically giving up a mulligan on this year. And then next year, you think Grant is going to be better than Patrick Williams, or do you think Patrick Williams is going to be better than Grant?
Well, but you're saying he's a 0. Patrick Williams should be back. That's one thing I never really understood.
Ignore that. Everyone else says he's not going to be back.
Caruso's coming back in 6 to 8 weeks. Why?
Who cares?
Why
fine, let's just say he comes back.
It's important and relevant.
He missed the whole year. He sucked balls at the beginning of the year. He's going to come back with 2 games left in the season and then jump onto the playoff roster, and you think he's going to help? Pretty low odds of that.
Yeah. Low odds indeed, but it's possible.
Fine, it's possible.
Gone. You and Mark are a little bit now because, hey, I was the first guy leading the charge. Like, hey, this guy's not playing that well last year as a rookie. Like, yes, he didn't play that well as a rookie. I'll be the first to admit that. And I thought he was extremely disappointing down the stretch when we needed him to step up due to injuries and guys missing games. But I think you and Mark have kind of gone a little bit too far to act like there were no signs of, oh, my God, this guy has the – because there were signs that he's got –
Answer my question. Who's better next year, Jeremy Grant or Patrick Williams next year? Who's a better player?
I'm not – Jeremy Grant will be a better player overall, but for this team, I think it's possible – maybe not likely, but I'd say 40-60 maybe that Williams is a better fit for this team defensively.
He's not. He's a way worse defender than Grant. It's not even close.
He's much bigger than Grant overall.
Grant's like what, like 6'8" with the 7'3" wingspan? They're basically the same size.
We got plenty of guys like that. What we don't have is a guy who's 225 to 230 who can guard bigger like Giannis and guard Durant really well. I'm not saying Williams will do that either, but I think he's more physically equipped to do it than Grant.
Well, he's got way less skills, so there's that, which is kind of a problem to do it. Just less experience. Look, I'm just talking about less experience
I
right now.
If
you told me, if you said, hey, look, I want to compare Patrick Williams in 4 years to Jeremy Grant, I'd say, fine, yeah, who knows? Who knows what Patrick Williams will be in 4 years? But if we're arguing about the next 2 years, it's not even close. It's not a discussion. It just isn't. It's like it'd be ridiculously unlikely that Patrick Williams will be better than Jeremy Grant next year. and just unfathomably unlikely that coming back at the end of the season he's going to be more useful than Jeremy Grant this year. Like it's just incredibly. And if you said, look, I want to build for the future, I don't want to sell out to try and win in the next 2 years. Like this is all because you said next year is the year. Well, Jeremy Grant is better if next year is the year. If you said, hey, look, I don't want to sell out everything. I think a team of Zach LaVine, Ayo, Kobe, and Patrick Williams can be a core that we could build a championship contender around in 3 or 4 years if we can add one more piece. Like, this is a different argument, but that's not your argument. If your argument is next year, it's Jeremy Grant. So, I mean, if you want to go future, that's when you would say Patrick Williams now has some potential, and you're giving up what you could have in 5 or 6 years because Jeremy Grant won't be here in 3 years. It's a 2-year move. Mm-hmm. So, you're giving up a future to make that 2-year move. And if you said, well, it's not worth it to me, I want to hang on to the future instead, like that's a different argument. I could understand that argument. But the thought that Jeremy Grant's going to be better this year, no. Or next year, no.
I don't think the Williams, delta from Grant. I don't think the delta from Williams and Grant is big enough. I'll put it simply this way. Number one, and more importantly, in 2 years, Cat's going to be available. Karl Anthony Towns. He's going to want to come to Chicago, and you can make that switch. Obviously, they're not going to the Timberwolves aren't going to trade for Vucevic, but if you have enough young talent on your team and pieces to move him to get Cat, and you pair Cat with LaVine and whoever,
it worked out great the last time those guys were paired together.
Well, yeah, I think they're vastly different players.
I know.
How dare you?
I just teasing.
You gotta be such a smart ass. you know darn well I would take that in a minute, man. I'd take that in a minute.
I'm
right now.
Not maybe a huge fan of Karl Anthony Towns in sense, but like I agree, you'd still take him. You wouldn't even think about it. You of course would take him if
he's a super,
if you're able to.
In Chicago, he would be much. He'd be under Donovan. He'd be put in a lot more positions to succeed. He's had a massive disservice in terms of coaching throughout his career in Minnesota.
Yeah. Either way, what if it's Harrison Barnes instead of Jeremy Grant?
I'm off the Harrison Barnes.
Off the Harrison now. Yeah. He started out really hot, and he's kind of calmed down. In some senses, it makes it more likely that he's available for that reason.
Yeah.
But great locker room guy. And the thing I think you would love about him is, and the reason I asked you is just because of comments you made earlier, still 40% from 3 on a season, 5 shots a game.
Well, I didn't know
got a good release.
I mean, that's big to me.
He draws fouls. He shoots lots of threes. Very efficient scorer still. Definitely not playing quite as well as he was earlier in the season in terms of total numbers.
Wait, he's that high?
Yeah.
He's at 40% on the year.
Yeah. I mean,
that is not his career number.
37.9 for career. His last few years, 40.7 this year, 39.1 last year, 38.1 the year before.
Wow. Much better than I thought, man. Jeez, I was shocked he was
39.5 the year before that. So, I mean, if you look at his last, 4 years, he's around 39% from 3 on high volume, each year.
16 points per game. Yeah, pretty decent rebounder.
Yeah, I mean, he does kind of everything, and he's a good locker room guy. Again, not a star player, right? We're not going to be able to add a star player, but good guy. I'd still take him too, and I would take him over Grant if we had the option. I mean, I like our defense would take a little bit more of a hit. I mean, I think Grant's a better defender than Barnes is, but boy would he make the offense just extraordinarily difficult to defend. I mean, could you imagine DeRozan basically de facto running point with 3 volume 40% 3-point shooters on the perimeter in Ball, LaVine, and Harrison Barnes? And Vooch out there setting screens.
It'd be unbelievable.
You'd really have a killer offense with that.
I tell you what, I probably prefer Barnes. I didn't know he was shooting that well from 3. With that knowledge, I'd take him. I mean, he's shooting significantly better this year than Grant, who's down to 33%.
Yeah, and Grant's not a 3-point shooter.
He's not a 3-point shooter. And the other more important thing to me, they're both the same height, and Grant's 15 pounds lighter. So, and Barnes is not overweight, so he's built stronger. That's where I think the Bulls are really lacking, is just heft in the power forward and center position outside of Vucevic. They really need a guy at the 4 who's got some size.
Yeah,
and he's got size.
I don't know. Like, I mean, just like seeing Jeremy Grant, he doesn't seem like so undersized as you think he is to me. Like, I don't know. Those numbers always seem like weight numbers. Like, just seem super unreliable to me. So, but I agree. Jeremy Grant has got like. There's concerns, for like a power forward, really low rebound rate, similar to Patrick Williams. Kind of wonder about some of that aggressiveness. Really shooting from the field, 41% this year from the field, 33% from 3. Whatever. There's definitely some concerns with Grant and his production this year, and obviously, people are just throwing everything at him. In his current role, we've seen him be more successful in a more limited role in the past, and have much higher percentages when his level of shot difficulty goes down. But
I'd love to get your opinion on this, the following. So this scenario, because I don't think the Bulls are going to make a move now. I think those injuries, and I think they're going to keep their powder keg dry until maybe the offseason.
I think that's a mistake if you do it. But
I agree, but I think that's what the
let me rephrase it.
And they'll counter.
Let me rephrase it this way.
Go ahead.
It's a mistake if you make a move in the offseason that you could make now. Like, if you're going to do something that can improve you, you might as well do it now and get the improvement for this year and next year. Now, if you say, like I said earlier, I want to build for 3-4 years from now, I think Jokic is going to come here because he's got the relationship with AK and like some other stuff, I could get behind the fact that maybe there's a ninja plan that's going to take place in 3 years. But I think if you don't do something now, which you might be totally right, and I also don't think you do something in the summer. I think then you also hold in the summer, and you're actually then looking more long term, and they're looking at a different window.
I think their move's going to be Patrick Williams will be returning at the end of March, early April, and be the piece that they're adding to the rotation.
Yeah, it could be.
And let's say that happens. They don't make a serious move. They might just do an ancillary move. They might add somebody at the. Yeah,
you can make some type of Troy Brown for someone else's scrub.
Troy Brown Jr. Get him out of here.
Exactly. Some type of deal where like you hope 2 guys in a new situation do something different.
Sure. So let's say that happens and they lose in the first round. Do you think the season would be success?
Yeah.
Even with a first round loss, let's say they get swept.
It kind of depends. Like if you got swept and it was like all non-competitive, no. I mean, like there's the difference between like you end up as a 3 seed and somehow you're playing Brooklyn in the first round and you lose. Like, I mean, you really call it. I mean, it's a little different, right? It is like just like as we discussed, it's just context is going to matter a lot about that.
Mm-hmm. Before the season, I said 47 wins and 7 playoff wins. That's what I saw. And I think that'd be a success, a massive success.
Agreed. If you got 7 playoff wins,
better.
To make it to the second round and take someone to 7 games, I think you'd feel good about that. Because whoever you play in the second round is going to be really good. So,
exactly.
If you did that would be great. Now, I mean, I don't know that they're going to do that. But if you did, I think you obviously you want them to get as far as possible. But I don't think if you lose to Miami, Philly, Milwaukee, Brooklyn in 7 games in the second round, I don't think you look at that and be like, man, that's ridiculous. I can't believe that happened. We choked and should have totally won. I mean, maybe in an individual game you might feel that way if something stupid happened, like they gave up one of these 20-point leads they keep doing recently. But like, you'd feel good about that. Like as a season, looking back on it, you'd be like, yeah, okay. One of these really great teams that also has continuity was able to take us down in the playoffs. Like, yeah, okay, I understand that.
So a success for you, even if they lose in the first round and they win a few games, and because they're playing just the luck of the draw.
Yeah, if they're playing an elite team and they lose, like I'm just not going to hold it against them. If they lose to like a 50-win team, it's like it's basically a second round matchup that you were unfortunate enough to face in the first round.
Okay, is this season a success? I'm going to throw out some teams.
Right.
Let's say they win between 47 and 55 games.
On the pace,
there's no doubt
the
regular season, Yes, there's no doubt there's no argument. The regular season, this season so far has been a success, right? We're actually a contender, and people are excited about the Chicago
We're talking
Bulls.
about maybe trading to go all in. The fact that we can consider using that phrase, and that so you could say like, yeah, maybe they could win a title makes it, yes, it's a success.
But let's say they get into the first round and they lose. I'm going to throw out some teams. Is it still a success? Yes or no? The Raptors.
No.
The Hornets.
No.
The Celtics.
No.
All right, I'll put a star on that one. The Hawks.
No.
The Cavs.
It depends how close it is.
I don't know how you could possibly say it would be a successful season.
The Cavs are one game behind us in the standings right now. Like let's not disrespect the Cavs. They're 30-20, basically just as good as we are.
Yeah, but that's
and I feel like they're that's just great for them and not so great for us. Like they have a 5-year window, but like they're still good, and like I think they match up super well against us too.
Okay. Just two teams, just to throw them out there. The Wizards,
no.
I'm going to guess you're saying no. The Hawks, did I ask you the Hawks?
You did,
no.
But no, still.
The Pacers, no.
No,
All
yeah.
right. So the Hawks, to me, and the Celtics.
You missed your opportunity to throw out the Knicks. I figured we could then just laugh.
I'm not going to acknowledge that team. If they ended up losing to the Knicks, it would be, that might be enough for me just to call it quits as a basketball fan. I might retire. I might retire as a C-Red. I might end everything and just go on to a different sport like lacrosse or something else.
Understandable.
Yes, because everything I believe it would just come shattering around me.
Man, the amount of noise someone would make about Thibodeau would be just hilarious if that happened. Anyway,
the Celtics and Hawks. Those are two teams that I think I don't know. You just look at those two teams to me, Trae Young, and since Hunter's come back, they're playing really well again. They're a good team, dude. I can also see in a series if they get swept by the Hawks, yeah, that's a lack of success. If they lose in 7 games, I still think the season's a success.
Does it matter
same with the Celtics?
Does it matter what the team that beats them does afterwards? So this is like, say you lose to the Hawks in 7 games and it's close and you don't feel maybe so bad about it. And then the Hawks play Milwaukee and they just get trounced by 20 points in the first 4 games and get kicked out. Do you then still feel? It does matter. Yeah, I mean, I think it does.
It's all relevant.
If the Hawks went to the finals, you'd just be like, oh wow, they were way better than we thought they were. That doesn't feel so bad as it did in the moment. And if they just get their asses kicked in the next round, you'd be like, well, no, we lost to the team that wasn't even close either. So,
we're just so I'm clear, you're redefining success now as they go to a first round and they beat one of the following teams: the 76ers. No, the Cavs. Excuse me.
Any of the teams I said they can't lose to would be a success if they beat them. I guess let me rephrase it this way: I feel like this season is a success no matter what, for many reasons. I mean, the great record, putting Chicago back on the map, making us have fun talking about the Bulls again, all the joy and entertainment I got this year watching this great entertaining team play basketball, and the hope we at least have going into the playoffs of something happening. Now, it will leave a really, really bad taste in your mouth that will be hard to get over if they lose to one of those teams that we just talked about.
Yeah. See, I expected them to be 47 wins and to lose potentially in the first round just because I expected the East to be a lot better. I didn't. So I expected them to be like a 7th seed or 6th seed or 5th seed. I didn't expect them to be a home team in the first round.
And they may not be.
And losing to...
Right?
Yeah, that's
I mean, they're like a game and a half away from that. It's like the 6th seed right now is just 2 games away from them.
2 games.
So it's
good
just,
point.
we'll and it's not like you'd feel terrible if somehow you fell behind these other teams that are playing really great basketball. It's just going to be tough. It's just there's a big 6, right? Is that just fair to say right now? And if you looked at the big 6, Chicago and Cleveland are the 2 teams. Probably everyone else goes, I hope I match up against one of those teams. Like if you're a Miami fan, if you're a Philly fan, a Milwaukee fan, or a Brooklyn fan, and you had to pick someone in the Big Six to play in the second round, you would want it to be Chicago or Cleveland. You'd be like, they don't have experience, they don't have continuity. You would want it to be one of those teams. Like the other teams, you probably would be more scared of. So, the Bulls got a lot to prove still, as do the Cavs, just because they're also new kids on the block in terms of playing competitive basketball.
But just breaking news as we record this.
Oh, boy.
The Heat lose at home tonight, or not at home. They lost on the road to the Celtics, and the Bulls are number 1 right now in the Eastern Conference at 31-18 on the last day of January.
All right, we'll take it.
What an accomplishment.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. Exactly, brother.
It's by percentage points, right? We're ahead by percentage points. Is that how that works?
Yep. Last thing we're a half game up on them since we've got one less loss, I think it is.
Yeah, but they have one more win, so it's like our just percentage points are ahead. Like we're tied in the game back standings, but we're
percentage points we're ahead. I did want to go one more topic because I have a nightmare scenario that I wake up in the middle of the night sweating, looking at the wall, thinking about all the rumors about Simmons going to the Nets. I think would be catastrophic for the beloved Bull. I think would make the Nets better, significantly better, and I think it would make, when they're finally healthy, and especially if Irving can eventually play, and obviously it's going to make the Sixers better because nobody's playing for him, right? So. What say you? Are you concerned about that situation? Because I am.
Are we talking Harden for Simmons?
Yeah, Harden for Simmons.
Just to be clear, I want to state that.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a trade that probably makes both teams better. And the only thing I'll say is the trade might kill the Nets. I know why you like Ben Simmons, but he's not played basketball all this year. I don't know if you read earlier, but he said, I'll need 3 weeks if I get traded before I can suit up. And that to me, that's like massive red flags. Like, what are you just sitting around eating like deep dish pizza for the last 4 months? Like, how does it take you 3 weeks to get into game shape? Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, and the last time we saw you, like, you were scared to dunk a basketball. Like, there's just, and you said you have mental problems. Like, there's just some concerns here. I'm not saying Ben Simmons is for sure going to be bad, but there is absolutely a risk if you're the Brooklyn Nets and you gave up James Harden for him that you're going to be way worse off. Like, it's not
worse off.
It's not like you're giving up. It's not like you're giving up Patrick Williams here. And it's just like this guy that's a prospect that might turn out for you in 3 or 4 years. You're giving up like a guy who won the MVP a couple years ago. And even though he's not having an amazing year, it's still a top player in the league. To get a guy who
there's no doubt
who has never been as good as James Harden at any point in his entire life, and has not played for like 6 months, and says he has mental problems and needs 3 weeks to get into shape. Like, so I'm just saying there's a lot of risk. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. I could see where you're coming from because, like, if you got the best version of Ben Simmons, like, that would solve a lot of the Nets' problems. And they have the other pieces around him to make up for the things that he wouldn't be great at. It's just so much of a risk that you're not going to get that best version of Ben Simmons. But you're right. On the other end,
I would take that.
On the other end,
if I was the Nets.
I wouldn't. On the other end, I agree. The 76ers just adding James Harden effectively for nothing. That's a huge boon for them. If
because they're right now. Look,
it's a no-brainer for the 76ers.
31-19. Yeah, and I just let me say though, Simmons is so much better defensively than Harden. It's like not even. You can't even have a discussion.
The reverse is true on the other end as well, my friend.
I don't think it's.
Oh, it's absolutely true.
Definitely as a shooter, no doubt about that. But Simmons is extremely underrated as a facilitator, playmaker, and rebounder on the offensive end.
He's a fine playmaker. The fact that James Harden is perhaps one of the greatest one-on-one offensive players in the history of the NBA means there's a pretty darn huge gap between those two guys.
Yeah, but
when the other one was
Durant
scared
and
to
Irving,
dunk a basketball,
I think defense
scared to dunk a basketball.
Yeah.
You're talking
Well,
about like
let's
one of
just
the
hope we don't
greatest
have to have
one-on-one
this
scorers
discussion.
ever against a guy who's scared to dunk the basketball, and you're trying to tell me the gap isn't that big. No, the gap is freaking mammoth on that end, especially because, like I said, he hasn't played. You have no idea if he can even shoot a ball from like 16 feet away at this point. You have no idea if he can do anything at this point. Like there's like a massive amount of risk. Even if you got the best version of Ben Simmons, it still might be a losing trade for you. If you got the best version of him, it might be a winning trade for you, but it still might be a loser, even at Ben Simmons at his best. And if he's at his worst, boy, did you screw up. So I can't imagine Brooklyn would do that.
I hope you're right, because for the beloved Bulls' sake, because as you said, and I agree 100%, both teams would be better.
Well,
in the long run,
I'm now thinking.
You're not saying the Nets would be
I'm now
better.
Thinking,
I think they'd be better.
I think the Nets have potential to be better if everything worked out perfectly, but I don't think everything would work out perfectly. The 76ers are obviously a crap ton better. Like that would be their dream scenario if that trade was on the table. Now maybe it's something like Simmons plus Maxey, or something to Brooklyn. I don't know. I feel like Brooklyn needs something other than Simmons in that deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anyway,
you got to take something else.
Anyway, regardless, it's an interesting idea.
Let's take this big. We've been talking waxing poetic for a while. Let's take this big red bus in after a great evening of round ball discussion. All the best to you, my friend. Oh, just one more thing. Thoughts and prayers to a brave kid on my son's travel team, Trevor. He's one of the best players on our team. And yesterday, I know some of the kids listen to the show. You know what happened. He suffered just an awful injury, very similar to what Paul George suffered in the 2014 Olympic. I think it was like a practice game. It was very similar injury in similar fashion. And it's as horrific as it was to see that happen to Paul George. It's, for me, to see it happen to a kid, it was even, just worse.
Yeah.
Truly one of my worst days. So he had surgery this morning, had 2 rods put in his tibia and fibia, and he's recovering now. So please, your thoughts and prayers for Trevor and his family as he, as he gets back to where he was, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I know he will, because the kid is just one of the best kids I've ever been around. So
yeah, well, good.
Godspeed, my friend.
Get well, Trevor. Bulls Nation is all rooting for you, and we know you'll get back just like Paul George to MVP format. Your best days are still ahead of you.
Absolutely. Yep, even better than Paul George, because Paul George has been too inconsistent. I know how you feel about Paul George.
Well, he had that one year with Oklahoma City, like after the leg injury, where he was like just unbelievable. And also, it's pretty impressive what he did last year in the playoffs, like up until the end. Almost carried them to the finals without Kawhi Leonard, which would have just been unbelievable. But either way, enough about Paul George. Get well, Trevor. Bulls Nation's behind you. We believe in you, and thoughts and prayers.
Love you, buddy. All right, man. Take it easy, DT. Always good talking to you, and whatever our tagline is. I should just say whatever our tagline is.
Anything.
We're not going to cut
anything. We're not going to cut Trevor. Come on. That'd be crazy. That's insane.
Oh, by the way, last announcement. 227 Bulls Podcaster Palooza. Hope to see everybody there at the Windy City game. Look at my link or look at my Twitter handle to get tickets. Make sure you buy from that link so you can sit with Doug and I. And Chris from Bulls 101's flying in. It's going to be just a Ricky O'Donnell, star-studded group of people are going to be there. So, and obviously the guys from Lockdown Bulls, going to be awesome. So Peck and Big Dave, it's going to be a great day. So hopefully everybody can come. Salim, everybody. I'm probably missing a few. But, Bulls on Tap. Love those guys. So it's going to be a great evening. And Doug, you're going to be there?
You already just said I was going to be there. Of course, I didn't say that. I have no idea.
I just want to hear you say
I have no idea if I'm going to be there, but you can.
I'm going to kidnap you and drag you there.
Yeah, I got to look at the calendar. Sunday is usually a good day for me, so I hope I'll be able to make it.
All right, my man. Until next time, go Bulls.
Go Bulls.